The number one question I get when people move to the Quad Cities is, which city should I move to? And it is a very important question to ask yourself. So we're gonna make this video today and cover the 4 major cities: Davenport, Bettendorf, Rock Island, and Moline, and compare and contrast them to tell you which one might be the right choice for you based on the pros and cons of each of them. So let's hit it and start off with the cost of living. So what does the cost of living do for each one of the cities? Well, let's start off with Bettendorf. When you're looking at Bettendorf, it's probably going to be the most expensive when it comes to the cost of living. A couple reasons. The first reason, of course, is the housing market. The housing market is the most expensive relatively in the Quad Cities when you're talking on the average and the median. So what does that look like? Well, when you're talking on the median, you're looking at about 300,000, but obviously when you're talking median, that's right in the middle. You can get things as low as 100 and homes as high as over $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. So the spectrum is very large when it comes to that. But why is it so expensive? Well, Bettendorf seems to be in the most demand, and for a very good reason, because things are getting built constantly. Developments are happening. The biggest is the Bettplex area, which I have talked about in several videos, but it is a major development that is happening and all the homes are being built up around that. And when you build a home, it's just a little bit more expensive than if you were to buy a currently built home. So Bettendorf, cost of living is seen as much more expensive when you're looking at the other 3 cities. But what about the other cities? What does the cost of living look like? Well, let's talk about Rock Island. Rock Island is seen as the more affordable options. Now, does that mean it's affordable? Not necessarily, but it means that Rock Island has older homes and that can be seen as a more affordable option. So it's just one of the things that Rock Island has going for it is seen as that more affordable option. But what about Davenport? Davenport is the largest city of the Quad Cities. So what does that tell you about affordability, the cost of living? Well, it kind of is a mixed bag. You have homes that you could buy for under $20,000, but you also have homes that can be up into the $1 million price point. And it's a wide range of the quality. So Davenport is seen as kind of a middle ground when it comes to cost of living. Not only that, but the cost of groceries, the cost of other utilities, that is also kind of a middle ground. But to be honest with you, a lot of those costs are fairly similar across the board, no matter which city you are in. Although I've heard that sometimes grocery stores will base their prices based on the income of that city, the average income of that city. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, you're probably looking at the average when you're looking at Davenport. And now what about Moline as far as cost of living goes? Well, cost of living in Moline, again, is kind of seen as the average of the Bettendorf Rock Island because it's got a mixed bag of both. Like we have the downtown area, we have the suburbs of Moline, and we have the places that are around John Deere. So you have a wide range there, but overall it's seen as kind of that middle ground as well. And to be honest, Moline doesn't do a lot of new builds, a lot of development, and part of the reason is that it's flanked on the Mississippi on one end, the Rock River on the other, and then Rock Island and Silvis/East Moline on the 2 sides. So it doesn't really have a lot of area to really grow into, and possibly it's stagnating when it comes to its growth, which can also help with affordability when there's just not a lot of new things going up and being built. So its cost of living is staying about the average for the entire Quad Cities. So just something to think about when it comes to choosing one of these cities, because cost of living is a real big deal, especially in this day and age. Now, cost of living is nothing if you don't have a job, right? So what does the job opportunities look like in each of the cities? Well, let's start out with Moline. Moline has one major employer and a lot of smaller ones, but that major employer is the major employer for the entire Quad Cities. And any guesses on what it could be? Well, if you guessed John Deere, you would be correct. John Deere's headquarters is located in Moline, and it is the main economic driver of the entire city because a majority, or a good amount at least, of the people living in Moline are working for John Deere. And you can see its influence basically anywhere in Moline. You have the headquarters, of course. You have the harvester works down on the river. You have the John Deere Pavilion right in the downtown area, which is more of a museum / showcase for John Deere right there. So obviously it's a big economic driver. And to be quite honest, a lot of the smaller guys, a lot of the other jobs, they don't even compare to John Deere when it comes to employment. But with that comes a double-edged sword, because if John Deere decides to lay off people, well, the city of Moline sees a big impact because people all of a sudden do not have the jobs that they had not too long ago. So it's a great thing, but it also can be a negative thing when you're talking about job opportunities within Moline. Now, into comparison, let's look at Bettendorf. Well, Bettendorf actually is kind of an interesting story because Bettendorf is a lot more known for its residential areas, not so much for its jobs. That doesn't mean that we're void completely of jobs in Bettendorf, because obviously it is the most expensive place to live when we talked about cost of living. So where are all these people working? Well, they're working at places like Arconic, which is where I worked at when I first moved to the Quad Cities. I was a mechanical engineer for them. I worked in their Bettendorf location, which is also a Riverdale location. This place is so big that it has 2 different addresses. The city line goes through the actual plant. So a little fun fact about that. But that is one of the major employers for Bettendorf. But to be honest, that's really the only major employer. We do have the hospital, Unity Point in Bettendorf, and obviously they hire a ton of people. But a lot of the people that live in Bettendorf work in other areas like Davenport and Moline and Rock Island, which is kind of an interesting take because everybody wants to live in Bettendorf, but maybe they don't want to necessarily work there because there's not a lot of opportunities when it comes to diversity of job opportunities. Now let's hop on over the river and talk about Rock Island. Rock Island is got a lot of like manufacturing type of jobs. It's got its downtown area, so it doesn't really have one major stick out employer, to be quite honest with you. It has a lot of smaller businesses, local mom and pop shops, and that's great because we need those medium small businesses because it really helps the economy stay local for one, but also just a driver to get people in the working workforce. So working workforce, that doesn't make any sense, but I think you get what I mean. It's got a lot of mom and pop shops, very diverse in the types of jobs that are over in Rock Island. So if you're looking for something that maybe is not a major employer, maybe take a look at Rock Island because they got a lot of different things going on over there. Now we'll talk about Davenport. And Davenport is the largest population size city in the entire Quad Cities. So you'd expect that it's probably got the most job opportunities, and that would be correct. Now, as far as major employers go, it's got a couple. You have places like Eaton, Sterilite, Amazon, which do hire a lot of people, but you do also have a lot of mom and pop small businesses going on there. But I would say the majority of people that are in the Quad Cities are going to be working a job in Davenport. And that's just due to the size of the city and the diversity that the city brings to the job market. So something to consider. If you're not one that wants to live in Davenport, well, there's a good chance you could live somewhere else and then work in Davenport. But Davenport has a lot of great areas as well to live. So either way you want to swing it, it may be an option for you. And speaking of moving to the Quad Cities, we have many different cities, not only the 4 major ones, and each one of those cities has so many different neighborhoods. And if you're moving here, you really got to have somebody that knows the ins and outs of each one of those. And luckily for you, if you're watching this, that person could be me, as I am a licensed realtor here. I go all over the city showing people the different neighborhoods, figuring out which ones are going to work for them. And if you're doing that, give me a call, send me a text. I would love to help you out and figure out which one works great for you and your family. My number is popping up down below. So if you're moving here, you're probably curious kind of what each community kind of feels like. So what about Bettendorf? Bettendorf is really known more for its community feel, its families, its young professionals, just a great tight-knit community because it used to be a small town. It is not really a small town anymore, sitting at about 40,000. It's gonna be possibly the second largest city in the Quad Cities here soon. Moline has that job right now, but it's definitely growing. But even so, it used to be a small town and you still get a lot of those small town things. They have parades. We just hosted the Halloween parade, but we have parades for the 4th of July, which I've partaken in, which is a lot of fun. You go down, you throw the candy out. It's actually a lot more work because I got a story for you. When I did this the first time, I was walking down, I just had this like Walmart bag of candy because the bag that we were supposed to have didn't show up or something. I don't remember why, but this bag, as I was walking, tried to rip in half. So I was trying to carry this whole bag of candy and throw it out at the same time. It was a very interesting time, but the kids got their candy and that's all that really matters. But in Bettendorf, that's the sort of stuff that's going on. People are getting involved with the community. They are volunteering. They are doing all those things that a small town would do, but still having amenities available to them as far as a big city goes. But what about places like Davenport? Well, Davenport is the largest city. I've said that several times. And because of that, you get a lot more diversity in different types of lifestyles and community feel. Obviously, you have the downtown area. That's where the music festivals are. That's where the river bandits play at the stadium down there. They have the big farmers market. They have the Bix. They have the Festival of Trees, which is going to be coming up soon. In case you don't know what that is, it's a big festival with the giant Macy's style balloons. They walk down the streets. Really, really cool. If you can stand the cold. A couple years ago, it was absolutely freezing. Even my dog was shivering, to give you kind of perspective, but hopefully that won't be the case this year. But either way, that downtown is the heart of the city. They have so many different things that happen there, and it brings in people from all of the cities, not just for Davenport. But on top of that, you still have that community feel. The suburbs of Davenport, you get that residential area feel, but it's definitely not as tight-knit as necessarily like Bettendorf is, because it's just a larger city and you tend to have a little bit more of disconnection when it comes to that community and that sense of community. Now, when we're talking about Rock Island, what is that community feel over in Rock Island? Well, you get a lot more of the history of the Quad Cities in Rock Island. Back in the day, it was ran literally by gangsters. It inspired Al Capone to be the gangster that he was. So you get a lot of that feel, especially in the Broadway district, which is close to downtown. And downtown itself is currently going under a restoration process and bringing it up to snuff and not losing that historical charm that Rock Island has. So if you're thinking about history and you want to be a part of that, well, Rock Island might be that great option for you when it comes to the community and how it really feels down there. But when we're talking about Moline, I look at Moline, as far as the community goes, kind of a mixture between Bettendorf and Davenport, because Bettendorf is obviously that residential, Davenport is more of that city, but Moline has a downtown that brings in concerts because they have that vibrant arena down there. They have the John Deere Pavilion, so it's got a nice concentrated downtown area. But if you're living there, it's a lot more of a suburb feel to most of the city. You have a strong sense of community. You have a lot of really great things going on there. So it's really a good mixture of the two when it comes to Moline's sense of community, a great mixture between Bettendorf and Davenport, big city and residential areas. Now, when we talk about outdoor recreational options, Bettendorf, Rock Island, Moline, they kind of have a lot of the same but different when it comes to outdoor recreation. Bettendorf, I got to volunteer for the park ambassadors for Bettendorf, so I got to really understand the parks in Bettendorf. There's 26 of them, in case you didn't know, but they all are really, really nice. You move over into Davenport and they have more parks than even Bettendorf has, and they're all very well maintained, and the diversity of parks you have. So it's just really diverse when it comes to the parks. And in Rock Island, you have places like Black Hawk State Park, which me and my wife went to just this fall. We walked through that park, and it's actually my first time walking through it. I've driven past it several times, but she wanted to take me because she actually lived over there at one point, and she wanted to go back and see it, especially in the fall time because all the leaves are changing to that vibrant yellow, vibrant oranges. So it's really cool to walk through there, and it's a pretty decent hike if you're looking to do that, and it's right in Rock Island. So you don't have to go far to go over there and test that out. So you have that going on. And then in Moline, you have places like Prospect Park, which I really, really enjoy. They have the Music Guild there, which is a community theater. So you have things to do in the park, not just be outside, be outdoors, but also they have Ben Butterworth Parkway, which is the bike trail system right along the river. It's one of my favorites in the Quad Cities, not just in Moline. So outdoor recreation is a big part of the cities, no matter which city you move to. It's just which flavor of outdoor recreation do you want to take part in? That's the big question. Now, if you're moving to the Quad Cities, you're probably curious what everything looks like, but luckily for you, I actually made a video all about that. We'll link it up here, where I literally go to every single city and show you what that looks like. But if you're moving here and you're not quite decided where the best city is for you, well, give me a call, send me a text. I am the one that answers all those phone calls, emails, text messages, and I would love to help find the place for you and your family. We'll talk to you next time.